public understanding of government economic priorities. We have not only intensified media engagement through the TV stations and radios, but have also engaged the public in open places like Jivanji Garden, Bunge la Mwananchi, and Mombasa County, where we held a meeting at Swahili Port Amphitheater. Similar engagements have also taken place in other locations in Nairobi, Mombasa, Eldoret, and Nyeri, thereby providing valuable insights and lessons which have been taken into consideration while preparing this budget. Seventh, Mr. Speaker, in order to create additional jobs for the youth, the government has begun rolling out Climate Works, a nationwide program that will engage over 110,000 youth across all 47 counties. The program started last year in Nairobi's informal settlements and has and remittance inflows and a contraction in food imports. As a result, our foreign exchange reserves have increased to their highest levels and stood at US dollars 10.5 billion, which is equivalent to 4.7 months of import cover by 30th of May 2025, and continue to provide adequate cover and a buffer against any short-term shocks in the foreign exchange market. The exchange rate against the US dollar has also appreciated from 159.7 to the dollar in January 2024 to stabilize at Kenya shillings 129.3 shillings to the dollar by 30th of May 2025. Mr. Speaker, the economy is expected to sustain growth momentum in 2025 and 2026, with the growth projected at 5.3% per year. And Mr. Speaker, this growth outlook is premised on a stable macroeconomic environment over the medium term. To foster macroeconomic stability, the government will continue to uphold prudent monetary and fiscal policies, ensuring that our actions remain aligned with the evolving needs of the economy and of the Kenyan people. As part of the process, the government will work to ensure that inflation remains within the targeted range, maintain a competitive exchange rate to the dollar, and deliver stable interest rates. Fiscal policy stance over the medium term will continue to support the government's priority programs under BETTER through a growth-oriented fiscal consolidation path. And as such, the fiscal deficit is projected to decline from 5.3% of GDP in the financial year 2023-24 to 2.7% of GDP in the financial year 2028-2029. Mr. Speaker, Kenya's economic outlook faces both external and domestic risks. Globally, trade tensions, financial market volatility, and geopolitical conflicts could reduce Kenya's exports, tourism, and remittances, as well as raise costs of essential commodities. In the domestic scene, extreme weather may impact agriculture, infrastructure, and food security. The government is monitoring these risks closely and will take necessary action and measures to safeguard macroeconomic stability. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, let me now expound on the policy, priorities, and structural reforms that the government is implementing to sustain economic growth and improve livelihood of Kenyans. The priorities are under the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Mr. Speaker, as I have already affirmed earlier in my statement, government's initiatives under BETTER over the last 2.5 years have resulted in significant successes, notwithstanding a challenging domestic and external landscape. Over the medium term, the government will consolidate the gains already realized to stimulate sustainable economic recovery for improved livelihoods. Towards this end, the government will continue to implement policies, programs, projects, and the interventions geared towards 1, bringing further down the cost of living, 2, ensuring food security, 3, creating jobs, 4, expanding the tax base, 5, improving foreign exchange balances, and finally, fostering inclusive growth. Priority will be given to attracting strategic investment across BETTER's 5 core pillars and their enablers, using a value chain approach to enhance production and add value and improve market access. This will be supported by a whole-of-government approach to service delivery. Mr. Speaker, the government will also implement the following interventions to support and accelerate economic recovery. First, continue to uphold macroeconomic stability and strengthen security to ensure a safe and supportive business environment. Second, accelerate the development of key infrastructure, including roads, railway, energy, and water systems to lower the cost of doing business and ease the movement of the people and goods. Third, boost investment in key economic sectors to drive broad-based, sustainable growth by advancing agricultural transformation, strengthening manufacturing, promoting environmental conservation and climate change mitigation, revitalizing tourism, and ensuring sustainable land use and management. Fourth, strengthen human capital development by increasing investment in health, education, and targeted social safety nets for vulnerable populations to achieve both social and economic outcomes. Fifth, promote empowerment of youth, women, and persons living with disability through government-funded programs complemented by strategic partnerships with private sector organizations. Sixth, facilitate fiscal decentralization by allocating shareable revenues to county governments to bolster institutional capacity and improve service delivery. And finally and lastly, undertake policy, legal, and institutional reforms to improve efficiency and effectiveness in public service delivery. I want to now turn to a presentation on building resilience against climate change. Here, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, climate change, we all know, is now a global crisis. And Kenya remains vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, which pose both economic and fiscal risks. In response, the government is taking proactive steps to align with the global transition towards a low-carbon, climate-resilient future. To address the challenges and opportunities in climate finance and investment, the government has developed a number of frameworks, including Climate Finance Mobilization Strategy, National Policy Framework on Green Fiscal Incentives, Carbon Market Framework, as well as the National Green Taxonomy. To diversify our financing sources, address budget deficits, and fund social and environmental sustainability projects, the government is developing a sustainability-linked bond framework that will allow the issuance of a bond. We reaffirm our dedication to protecting our environment, safeguarding livelihoods, and building a climate-resilient Kenya for current and future generations. Mr. Speaker, as a country, we continue to experience challenges of disaster occurrences, mainly due to weather variability and climate change. These pose significant fiscal disruptions, while at the same time affecting lives and livelihoods of millions of Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, in order to have a financing framework to manage disaster risks, the government is finalizing the development of the Public Finance Management Disaster Risk Management Fund regulations of 2025. The regulations seek to establish a dedicated fund for addressing 4 cycles of disaster risk management, namely preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. Allow me now to turn to policy and legal institutional reforms. Mr. Speaker, recognizing that sustainable economic recovery depends on the timely implementation of effective policy, legal, and institutional reforms, the government is implementing the following interventions to enhance the business environment, improve efficiency in public service delivery, and bolster accountability and transparency in the management of public finances. Number 1, public procurement reforms. Mr. Speaker, to streamline public procurement, we developed the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Amendment Bill of 2024, which is currently in Parliament for enactment. The bill seeks to enhance transparency and accountability, strengthen the role of the regulator to enforce standards, compliance, and sanctions for non-compliant procuring entities, promote the use of local content, and align with international best practices. I urge the honorable members to fast-track this enactment. Its enactment. Mr. Speaker, in order to fully automate public procurement and asset disposal processes, I launched the end-to-end e-government procurement system in April 2025. The e-government procurement system is a complete departure from the manual processes and will lead to increased bidder participation, enhanced efficiency in processing of procurement requests, and increased authenticity of procurement documents through integration with various government systems. Mr. Speaker, the rollout of the e-procurement system is scheduled for July 2025. In order to ensure effective use of this system, the National Treasury rolled out the training of end users from procuring entities in both the national and county governments on the e-government procurement system phase 1 modules that cover procurement planning to contract management. We have since trained suppliers, and to date, 400 e-government procurement system end users comprising public finance management staff and suppliers from both the national and county governments have been trained in readiness for full rollout in July 2025. Next, I want to speak to restraining growth of public sector wage bill, which has been of serious concern. Mr. Speaker, the government continues to implement measures aimed at reducing the ratio of the government wage bill as a share of tax revenue with a view to free much-needed resources for priority social and development spending. The government will implement the following initiatives to control the wage bill. First, the government will fully implement the unified human resource management system across all public sector entities by July 2025. This initiative is part of broader efforts to enhance public sector efficiency, improve management of wage bill, and ensure the effective utilization of public funds. Second, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission continues to sustainably reduce the number of allowances in public service through a phased approach aimed at streamlining allowances to improve transparency, accountability, equity, and fairness, thereby ensuring total public compensation bill is affordable and fiscally sustainable. To this end, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission will progressively review allowances and benefits in the future collective bargaining agreements, aligning them to the allowances policy guidelines for the public service. Allow me now to turn to state corporations reforms. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, state corporations are a major source of fiscal risks to public finances due to management and operational inefficiencies. An assessment conducted by the National Treasury to determine viability of state corporations identified critical gaps and vulnerabilities. Mr. Speaker, to address the vulnerabilities, the Cabinet in January 2025 approved reforms to streamline state corporations and enhance governance and accountability of the corporations. The reforms target to address operational and financial inefficiencies, enhance service delivery, and reduce over-reliance on exchequer support by state corporations. The approved reforms include the following. First, merger of 42 state corporations into 20 entities to improve operational efficiency and eliminate redundancy, as some have duplicating and or overlapping mandates. Second, dissolution of 25 state corporations and their functions transferred back to their parent ministries or other state corporations. Third, restructuring 6 state corporations to align their mandates for improved performances. Fourth, declassification of 4 public funds currently categorized as state corporations and transferring their functions back to the relevant ministries. And fifth, declassification of 13 professional bodies currently categorized as state corporations to private entities with no exchequer budget. Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, in order to enhance operational efficiency, improve governance and ownership of state corporations, the government developed the Government-Owned Enterprises Bill of 2024. The bill is part of broader efforts by the government to streamline public enterprises, reduce fiscal risks, and enhance service delivery to citizens. The bill is currently before this August House for consideration. Thank you. I urge honorable members to favorably consider the bill to enable its enactment. Mr. Speaker, in order to secure the uptake of cotton production, while also providing alternative linked supplies for local apparel manufacturers, the Cabinet approved the revival and commercialization of Rivertex East Africa Limited by onboarding non-equity strategic partners. Mr. Speaker, on sugar sector reforms, His Excellency the President reaffirmed his commitment during this year's Madaraka Day celebrations to ensure the prompt payment of sugarcane farmers. The government has also taken practical steps to deliver its promise to modernize the mills and transform these once struggling factories into productive, sustainable enterprises. Currently, 4 state-owned sugar factories, Chemelil Sugar Company, Muhoroni Sugar Company, Nzoia Sugar Company, and South Nyanza Sugar Company, which is also known as Sony, have been placed under competitive leasing arrangements. This initiative is expected to enhance efficiency, restore profitability, and protect the livelihoods of farmers. Let me now turn to pending bills. Mr. Speaker, the government remains committed to resolving the long-standing issues of pending bills dating back to 2005 as part of broader efforts to strengthen public financial management and restore confidence in government processes. In this respect, the Pending Bills Verification Committee that was appointed in September 2023 is currently finalizing its report for submission by end of this month. Since its inauguration, the committee received a total of 65,625 pending bills claims valued at over 571.6 billion. The committee has analyzed 57% of the bills received valued at 522 billion. The 57% is in terms of numbers. Out of this, a total of 229 billion has been recommended for settlement. Once the committee submits its report, we shall submit the recommendations to Cabinet for approval to settle the pending bills. Let me now speak to national assets and inventory management reforms. Mr. Speaker, in order to promote prudent management of public assets and liabilities, the National Treasury digitized assets in the assets and inventory management modules in the IFMIS for use by both national government and county governments. Already, 52 state departments have gone live on the IFMIS asset module and are at various stages of uploading their registers for 6 asset categories, namely land, building, motor vehicles, ICT equipment, office equipment, and furniture and fittings. In addition, a roadmap is in place to roll out the module to the county government, and this reform will enable accounting officers have visibility of all assets and inventory under their control and facilitate optimal assets utilization. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, to enhance the management and utilization of public assets, the government is developing a policy on public sector asset valuation. The policy will support accurate financial reporting, strengthen fiscal discipline, and inform evidence-based public investment decisions. In addition, the government will develop framework to facilitate identification of public sector assets, and this will ensure accuracy and completeness of assets register, which are critical for transition to accrual basis of accounting. On financial sector reforms, Mr. Speaker, the banking sector has remained stable and resilient with a strong asset base, which grew by 1.5% from 7.6 trillion in April 2024 to 7.7 trillion in April 2025. To anchor the banking sector to continue playing its role in Kenya's socio-economic transformation, various reforms have been implemented, which include, first, the Central Bank of Kenya lifted the moratorium on licensing of new commercial banks in Kenya in April 2025. This is expected to attract foreign direct investment in the sector, resulting in competition and consequently reduced lending rates. Second, to promote the greening of banking sector, Central Bank of Kenya in April 2025 issued the Kenya Green Finance Taxonomy and the Climate Risk Disclosure Framework for implementation by the sector. The Kenya Green Finance Taxonomy is a tool to classify whether particular economic activities are green or environmentally sustainable and promote the transition to a low-carbon economy. The Climate Risk Disclosure Framework is aimed at enabling banks to integrate climate-related risks into their governance, strategy, risk management, and disclosure frameworks. It is also intended to enable banks to leverage on business opportunities from efforts to mitigate and adapt to climate change. And third, issuance of guidelines on global liquidity standards and leverage ratios. The Central Bank of Kenya in April 2025 issued guidelines on liquidity coverage ratio, net stable funding ratio, and leverage ratio for the banking sector. These guidelines will enhance the banking sector's liquidity and capital frameworks to promote greater financial stability and resilience, thereby ensuring that banks have the ability to withstand unexpected shocks, maintain stable funding, and manage their risk profiles effectively. Mr. Speaker, the Central Bank of Kenya, in collaboration with the National Treasury and other stakeholders, are developing the National Financial Inclusion Strategy for the period covering 2025 to 2028. The strategy provides a consolidated framework for advancing financial inclusion agenda to meet the needs of all Kenyans through deepening access and usage of financial services, enhancing quality of affordable financial products that meet consumer demands. Mr. Speaker, to strengthen digital finance in Kenya, the government will continue to implement the National Payment Strategy for the period 2022 to 2025 and fast-track finalization of a national policy on digital finance. In order to reform and modernize the national payment system, Central Bank of Kenya is doing the following. 1, undertaking a comprehensive review of the national payment system legal and regulatory framework. 2, implementing a fast payment system that seeks to address persistent challenges in interoperability, affordability, and the high cost of digital transaction. And third, effective 1st July 2025, the Kenya Electronic Payment and Settlement System will transition to a 24/7 settlement capability. This will support round-the-clock trade, enable faster clearing of government payments, facilitate real-time business-to-business transactions, and provide greater flexibility for consumers and financial institutions. Mr. Speaker, following the grey listing of the Republic of Kenya by the Financial Action Task Force in February 2024, the government has continuously addressed the technical deficiencies identified in Kenya's Mutual Evaluation Report, which was published by Eastern and Southern Africa Anti-Money Laundering Group in September 2024. Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, one of the technical deficiencies identified in the Kenya's Mutual Evaluation Report was lack of a policy and regulatory framework to the virtual assets and virtual assets service providers. In order to regulate this sector, the government has developed the Virtual Asset Service Providers Bill 2025, which is currently before Parliament. Again, I urge honorable members to fast-track its enactment. On capital markets development, to further deepen the capital markets, the government continues to review the legal and regulatory framework to address emerging issues in the sector. In particular, the government overhauled the public officer regulations and collective investment schemes regulations to spur uptake of products while ensuring that investors are protected. The government has also approved new regulatory frameworks to support credit ratings and alternative investment funds, which have attracted a lot of interest from investors. Further, the government is in the process of reviewing the regulatory frameworks for licensing, margin trading, conduct of business for market intermediaries, and mergers, acquisitions, and takeovers. Once in place, these regulations will reinvigorate capital markets activity and make our capital markets more facilitative and efficient. Mr. Speaker, to diversify the government sources of financing, a Sukuk bond has been issued while other Sharia-compliant products are in the pipeline. The first Sukuk bond raised 3.2 billion, which has been effectively deployed in the affordable housing program and pension reforms. Mr. Speaker, in the Tax Laws Act, now I turn to the pension reforms. Mr. Speaker, in the Tax Laws Amendment Act 2024, we introduced a number of incentives aimed at increasing disposable income to our senior citizens once they retire. And I thank this Honorable House for passing this Tax Laws Amendment Bill in December. We, among others, increased tax deductible amount, removed tax on all retirement benefits, and introduced tax exemption on pension savings towards post-retirement medical schemes. Mr. Speaker, despite the reforms introduced in this sector, benefit adequacy remains a persistent challenge. Many retirees still find their pensions insufficient to meet their basic needs. And Mr. Speaker, the retirement benefits system predominantly covers the working population in the public and private sector to the exclusion of the unemployed population, who are majority in the informal sector. To address this, the National Treasury, in collaboration with key stakeholders, is implementing the National Retirement Benefits Policy. This policy outlines a clear, forward-looking strategy to address long-standing structural challenges, such as fragmented legal frameworks, exclusion of informal sector workers, limited medical cover for the elderly, weak portability mechanisms, and inadequate dispute resolution structures. Mr. Speaker, the government remains committed to fulfilling its obligations to retired public servants while ensuring that our pension system is modern, inclusive, efficient, and sustainable. In this respect, the government is undertaking reforms aimed at delivering faster, more transparent, and citizen-friendly pension services. Key among these reforms is the re-engineering of the pension management information system, which, together with the launch of a pension self-registration platform, will significantly improve data accuracy, enhance biometric verification, and reduce pension processing time from several months to less than 30 days. These reforms will also ensure real-time claims tracking and integration with the national identification and payroll system, reducing errors and potential leakages. The re-engineered pension management system is planned for rollout on 1st of July 2025 and will transform pension administration by 1, enabling ministries, departments, and agencies to submit pension claims online at source through integration with government human resource systems. 2, allowing pensioners and beneficiaries to access services remotely and track the status of their claims in real time. And 3, providing automated updates to clients on the progress of their claims through system-generated notifications. On insurance reforms, Mr. Speaker, to facilitate the growth of the insurance industry in Kenya, the government will speed up the approval of the National Insurance Policy and its implementation. The policy will guide the review of the Insurance Act, which has served its purpose, albeit with progressive amendments for the last 30 years. Mr. Speaker, the Insurance Regulatory Authority is undertaking focused training on livestock and crop insurance, targeting farmers and pastoralist communities. These efforts are aimed at improving understanding and access to agricultural insurance as a tool for mitigating climate-related risks and protecting livelihoods of farmers and pastoralist communities. The authority is also conducting a comprehensive money laundering and terrorist financing risk assessment on the vulnerability of the insurance industry. This will aid in the identification of areas of improvement so as to strengthen the supervisory framework. On reforms under the education sector, Mr. Speaker, the National Treasury is committed to upholding the right to education, including free and compulsory basic education as guaranteed under Article 53B of the Constitution of Kenya. While we are cognizant that examinations must be conducted as scheduled later this year, there is need to undertake a critical evaluation of the costing of examination, assess the sustainability of the program in view of the prevailing fiscal constraints, and explore optimal options for delivering national examinations in order to ensure economy and value for money in public spending. Mr. Speaker, a key consideration is the merits of public funding of examination fees for all primary and secondary school candidates, including those from well-off households, as opposed to targeting the vulnerable students in our schools. We should also explore options of making the exercise of delivering national examinations simpler and affordable without compromising the credibility of the exercise. To this end, the National Treasury is in consultations with the Ministry of Education on how best to achieve this at a minimal cost possible, including evaluating possible cost-sharing mechanisms. Mr. Speaker, the government remains committed to ensuring access to quality education for all children. In this regard, I assure the public and the 2025 examination candidate of our commitment to provide adequate funding for 2025 national examinations. On the fiscal policy framework, Mr. Speaker, the implementation of 2024-2025 budget has faced notable challenges, primarily following the withdrawal of the Finance Bill of 2024. Its withdrawal, alongside the associated public demonstrations, adversely affected economic activity and disrupted business operations across the country, compounding the fiscal pressures facing the government already. In response, the government undertook a revision of the fiscal framework through Supplementary Estimate Number 1 in August 2024. This revision reflected a lower revenue base following the preliminary outcomes of financial year 2023-24, while also addressing immediate cash flow constraints. These adjustments were critical to ensuring the continuity of public service delivery. Mr. Speaker, in addition to the mid-year economic disruptions, the budget execution has been further constrained by shortfalls in revenue and emerging expenditure pressures. Notably, the implementation of the collective bargaining agreements and funding requirements under the new university education financing model have placed significant demands on the available fiscal space. These challenges have led to cash flow pressures and a buildup of pending obligations, necessitating careful fiscal management and reprioritization. To address these evolving dynamics, the government prepared supplementary budget estimates to accommodate revenue shortfalls experienced during the current fiscal year and accommodated expenditure pressures. On domestic revenue mobilization, Mr. Speaker, in order to support our economic agenda and sustain key government programs, the government continues to implement a balanced mix of tax policy and administrative measures aimed at significantly boosting revenue collection. As part of the process, the government is focused on broadening the tax base while reducing the burden of compliance. In this regard, we have prioritized sectors such as the digital economy, agribusiness, and small and medium enterprises in tax education and outreach programs. In addition, Mr. Speaker, Kenya Revenue Authority continues to embrace modern technology to streamline tax processes, facilitate trade, and enhance voluntary compliance. A key milestone in this journey is the launch of Gava Connect, an open application programming interface platform that enables Kenyan developers to build homegrown solutions for efficient access to tax services. This program enhances service delivery, improves transparency, and strengthens our ability to detect tax evasion. Mr. Speaker, Kenya Revenue Authority has also introduced several digital tools to simplify compliance and boost operational efficiency. One is what we call auto-populated VAT returns for seamless, accurate tax filing. Two, simplified pay returns, accessible via mobile, web, and application program interface. Three, electronic rental income tax system that has enabled transparent rental income declarations. And four, forecourt electronic tax invoice management system integration in the petroleum sector, connecting fuel dispensers to point-of-sale terminals. This enables real-time transmission of sales data to electronic tax invoice management system, simplifying compliance and ensuring greater transparency in fuel transactions. Mr. Speaker, these solutions are more than just tech updates. They are the drivers of economic empowerment and accountability. Indeed, by simplifying tax procedures, developing user-friendly digital platforms, and providing on-the-ground support, Kenya Revenue Authority is nurturing a fair and inclusive tax culture, one that enables businesses to thrive while meeting their obligations. Mr. Speaker, building on the progress made, our focus in the financial year 2025-26 and over the medium term will be to strengthen domestic resource mobilization through the following key initiatives. First, continue with the implementation of the national tax policy and the medium-term revenue strategy to provide a consistent and predictable framework for tax administration and policy formulation. Second, continue with the automation of tax administration processes to improve the overall efficiency of the tax system. And third, enhancing non-tax revenue collection by enabling ministries, departments, and agencies to generate income through the services they provide to the public. Mr. Speaker, as part of our broader fiscal reform agenda, the government is undertaking targeted tax administrative reforms aimed at strengthening our revenue base and promoting inclusive economic growth. These reforms will focus on three key objectives. First, reducing tax expenditures. Mr. Speaker, tax expenditures stood at 3.38% of GDP in 2023. To unlock additional revenue for national government, we must reduce that tax expenditure. Second, expanding the tax base and enhancing compliance, in line with the goals set out in the medium-term revenue strategy. And third, streamlining the tax structure to encourage domestic production, attract investment, and stimulate economic growth. Mr. Speaker, allow me to speak to improving efficiency of public expenditure. Here, Mr. Speaker, in our continued effort to ensure prudent fiscal management, the government will sustain and deepen measures aimed at strengthening expenditure control and enhancing the efficiency and effectiveness of public spending. To this end, the government will implement a series of targeted actions, which include: 1, utilization of the launched end-to-end procurement system to maximize value for money, enhance efficiency and transparency in public procurement processes. 2, rolling out of a human resource management system across all national government ministries and departments, as well as county government, to support better management of the public wage bill. 3, scaling up the use of the public-private partnerships framework for commercially viable projects to attract private sector participation in public service delivery, what we call PPP. 4, improving the public service pension administration through rolling out the pension management information system. And 5, fast-tracking governance reforms in state corporations to strengthen accountability, efficiency, and financial sustainability. I want to now turn to revenue projections. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, based on the outlined policy measures and structural reforms, total revenue collections, including appropriation in aid, for the financial year 2025-26 budget is projected to be at 3,321.8 billion, equivalent to 17.2% of GDP. Of this amount, ordinary revenue is projected at Kenya shillings 2,754.7 billion, which is equivalent to 14.3% of GDP. And ministerial appropriation in aid, or if you like, non-tax revenue, is projected at 567 billion shillings. Grants are projected at 46.9 billion, or 0.2% of the GDP. Having talked about revenue projections, let me now turn to expenditure projections. Mr. Speaker, total expenditure in the financial year 2025-2026 budget is projected at 4,291.9 billion, equivalent to 22.3% of GDP. And of this, recurrent expenditures will amount to 3,134.4 billion, equivalent to 16.3% of GDP. And development expenditures, including allocations to domestic and foreign finance projects, contingency fund, and equalization fund, will amount to 693.2 billion, equivalent to 3.6% of GDP. Total allocation to county governments is projected at 474.9 billion, of which equitable share is 405.1 billion. Fiscal deficit and financing. Mr. Speaker, the resultant fiscal deficit, including grants, is projected at 923.2 billion, which is equivalent to 4.8% of GDP, down from the estimated 997.5 billion, or 5.7% of GDP in financial year 2024-25. The fiscal deficit for the financial year 25-26 budget will be financed by net external borrowing of 287.7 billion, equivalent to 1.5% of GDP, and net domestic borrowing of 635.5 billion, which is equivalent to 3.3% of GDP. Public debt management. Mr. Speaker, Kenya's public debt is projected to remain with these sustainable levels over the medium term. In present value terms, the debt to GDP is projected to progressively decline from 63% in 2024 towards the debt anchor of 55% or minus 5% of GDP plus or minus 5% of GDP for 2028. To support the projected decline in debt levels, the National Treasury will continue implementing various reforms as guided by the medium-term debt management strategy, including liability management operations, continue pursuing use of concessional loans from multilateral, bilateral, and limited commercial sources such as international bond issuances. Additionally, reforms targeted to support domestic market development will eventually reduce the cost of public debt while sustaining fiscal consolidation efforts to ensure debt remains within sustainable levels. Further, the government will explore emerging funding instruments such as debt swaps, diaspora bonds, sustainability-linked bonds, and environmental, social, and governance debt instruments to fund budget deficit and manage public debt. This strategic approach will not only diversify our financing options, but also strengthen international partnerships and promote sustainable growth. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, the government is keen on sustaining transparency and improving efficiency on public debt service. To this end, the National Treasury is in the process of integrating the Commonwealth Meridian Debt Management System with the Integrated Financial Management Information System, IFMIS, and the core banking systems of Central Bank of Kenya. On public-private partnerships framework, Mr. Speaker, the government continues to strengthen the role of public-private partnerships in financing our development agenda. Currently, there are 32 PPP projects at various stages which are targeted to mobilize 70 billion shillings in the financial year 2025-2026 through private investments in priority sectors, including energy, water, housing, health, and transport. So, Mr. Speaker, to enhance transparency and accountability at all stages of project life cycle while implementing PPP, I recently issued a circular on mandatory disclosure requirements for all privately initiated proposals. This measure is part of our broader effort to strengthen the integrity of the PPP program and to ensure that private sector participation in public projects fosters public trust. Mr. Speaker, the National Treasury in May 2025 received the final report of the Committee of Experts on leveraging local financial markets for investment